Okay, so in the last lesson, we were mainly talking about factorizing. And we went through different techniques of factorizing. And I want to start with this selection. And I want to ask if you can please try and factorize question 5 for me as fully as you possibly can. And when you have finished factorizing, can you let me know in the chat? So we are going to factorize question 5, see what we remember from the last lesson. And if you are confused, just pop your hand up and we can have a chat. I'm not against giving hints if students ask questions. Hi, Bukle. I'm so glad you could make it. We're just warming up, just stretching our mathematical muscles. And we're doing question 5. And welcome to Mene, Naledi, Ndin, Namulo, Numklamolo, Nicole, Najabulo, Tenda, and Tenswalo. I see you guys are all with us today. So if I think back to the last lesson, what technique do I always check for when I'm factorizing? Who wants to share with their classmates the knowledge that they have acquired about factorizing? Come on, Bukle. I know you know this. Or I think you know this. Ornella, what do you think we should do? What technique, what have you got in your toolbox? So from the last lesson, we spoke about a highest common factor, a difference of two squares, a trinomial, open two brackets. I like that, appreciate. We also have something called the grouping. And then if we really want to be sneaky, I didn't cover this, but there's something called the sum and difference of two cubes. Okay, Bukle, what did you do first? Naledi, what did you do first? I want to know. You even pop your hand and just tell me. It's quicker than just having to type the whole time. Who's got time for typing? Bukle, go ahead. What is step 1?
So step 1, what I did, sir, I took out the common factor. So in
Yes.
these terms, the common factor is 5.
Yes. And then after that, what did you do next?
And then if you left in with what's left inside the bracket is x squared minus 9. And that is a bracket that you can factorize.
Yes. So you did the HCF, and now you're saying, look, I can actually factorize this further. And I think this is what in the chat Appreciate was talking about, was opening two brackets. Would you agree with Appreciate that opening two brackets is a good idea?
Yes, sir.
And what would you put in the brackets?
So because we already know that x squared can be broken into x times x, so in the one bracket we put x, and in the other one also put x.
Okay.
And then 9 is a perfect square, so we can divide it, we can make it into 3 times 3. So in the one bracket, we put plus 3, in the other minus 3, because it's a difference of 2 squares.
Yes, Brooklyn, that was fantastic. You clearly get this. Thank you so much for your help, our classmates. So that was pretty good. Should we do one more? Let's try. What do we do more? This is really good to practice factorizing. So can everybody try and give question 3 a go? Try and give question 3 a go. Can you factorize question 3? Now, I don't see an HCF and I don't see a difference of two squares. So I think this is the method that I'm going to have to use. Now, in the last lesson, I seem to be quite into this idea of drawing something like that to help me. See if you can remember what I did and let it help you. So I think we have to fill in numbers here and here, here and here. And what is the number here? The number here is going to be +5. Are you recognizing this method from the last one for trinomials? So just tell me done in the chat when you're done. But I'm going to give you some time to work at that first. So what do we have here? Suppose we could use 3 and 3, or we could use 9 and 1. I'm not sure yet which one will work. And then I could have 1 and 4. Oh, but that doesn't work very nicely because 3 times 4 is 12. Oh, no, that doesn't work. So I think what I need to do is, instead of using 3 and 3, I'm going to try and use 9 and 1. So even maths teachers don't always get it right the first time. You do have to play around. Now I'm feeling a bit more comfortable because 9 times +1 is +9. 1 times -4 is -4. And what I always need to do is make sure that these two things add up to this. But now I have to read it off. And I want a student in the class to put their hand up and tell me, what is the actual way this is going to be factorized going to be? I know there's going to be 2 brackets, but what is there going to be in each of those 2 brackets? So I don't know, Nico or Naledi, who feels like sharing your knowledge with the class? It's so much quicker to just pop your hand up than type. Who's got time for typing? Give it a go. Who thinks they know what to do here? Lenuko, are you feeling confident?
So I'm gonna give it a wild guess.
Give it a guess. You know what? I respect your contribution to the class.
Oh, okay, sir. But you see, we have this 5 outside
Yeah.
the brackets. So aren't we gonna multiply it out? I mean, divide it out, since we have a difference of 2 squares.
But remember, we're looking at number 3. Yeah? So number
Oh,
3.
no.
Yeah,
Oh,
number 3.
okay, sir. We'll do the quadratic formula here.
Oh, you're going to use the quadratic formula. Do you know about that already?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. We're going to get to the quadratic formula, I promise. But have you seen this method now where I read off and I go, this is 9x minus 4 because of this top line, and then it's x plus 1. Does that look familiar to you?
Yes, sir, it does. We did do something like this in class.
Okay, so it's not completely new to you. So what this is when I'm factorizing it using the trinomial method. But you're right. When we get to the quadratic formula is pretty good at solving a lot of these things. But I'm just sharpening up our practice, our factorizing skills before we get there. All right. Thank you so much, Nico. I really appreciate your sharing. Okay, so now we are going to move away from expressions. Expressions are just where there's one side and they're on 2 sides. What we can do now is we can get to an equation. And an equation is when we have an expression that is linked to another side with an equals. All right, so if we have an expression on this side and an expression on that side, and they are linked by an equals. Give me a thumbs up if you understand the difference between an equation like 1 and 2 and an expression. An expression would just be just that. Give me a thumbs up if you understand the difference between an expression and an equation. That's an important idea. Now, an expression, you factorize or you simplify. An equation, you have to solve. So the new skill we're going to be working on today is solving quadratic equations. Okay, but even more than that, quadratic equations are just equations that have a power of 2 somewhere in the equation. But whenever we solve equations, we have to put them in standard form. And standard form is when all of the items are on one side and they go from the biggest power to the smallest power. So let me show you as an example. If we look at number one is already in standard form, okay? It's already in standard form because all of the items, the terms are on one side. I have a 0 on the other side, and I go from the power of 2, then it's a power of 1, and then it's the constant term. This one over here is not in standard form, but the way you turn it into standard form is by moving the 12 to the other side, where it becomes minus. And now it is in standard form. Give me a thumbs up if you understand what standard form for a quadratic equation is. Often in class, teachers will say to you, this is the standard form of a quadratic equation. And A, B, and C are just numbers that they can take on. All right, that's good news. So knowing what the standard form is important. We're going to use it today. Now, how else can teachers make your life a bit more difficult? Well, sometimes they make it look like this. So there's a bracket and you have to multiply stuff out. But ultimately, you're just multiplying things out and moving everything to one side to get standard form. Now, when we talk about standard form, we talk about the number in front of the x squared being a. We talk about the number in front of the x being b. And we talk about the constant term being c. And so you can describe any quadratic equation using 3 values like this. And we often write down a, b, and c in relationship to this. Give me a thumbs up if you understand that, you've seen it. Give me a thumbs down if you haven't. It's really important I don't go too fast. I want to make sure that everybody understands what standard form is, what A, B, and C are, because they're never ready to take the next step. Okay. Then, my students, we will boldly go to the next level. Now, what you'll notice here is all they've done is they've pulled out the A is 1 for here. There's the A is 1, the B is 5, and the C is 6. But I think you guys know this. I don't need to go into more detail. You can clearly pull out the A, B's, and C's. So I'm not going to spend time on something that you don't need to spend more time on. So let's do one little, actually, let's go straight to quadratics. Let's not go to linear equations. Okay, solving a quadratic equation by factorizing. So I want everyone to take this quadratic equation and move it into standard form. And tell me you in the chat when you're done. I want you to write that in standard form. So step 1, I want you to put that in standard form. Let me know in the chat when you're done. Okay, so step 1 was standard form, and I think all of you could do that. Now, step 2 is I want you to factorize x squared minus 7x plus 10 for me. And when you are done with that, I want you to tell me in the chat, done. So the second step is to factorize. Now, remember, there are 3 methods that we concentrate on. There are other ones too. There's 2 more, and I think the method I would use for this is trinomial. So I know you can use the quadratic formula, but for today, we're just keeping it simple. So I think So -5 and -2 give me -7. And so I can rewrite this equation like this. If you have got to the green step, give me a thumbs up in the chat if you understand, because this is where the new stuff is going to happen. Give me a thumbs up if you follow that. Okay, now, here's the thing. If you have something times something, so you have, let's say, the red bracket and you have the blue bracket. If the red bracket was 0, so if that bracket was 0, anything times 0 doesn't matter what the other thing is, it's going to be 0. And the same idea will work for this. If this bracket is 0, it doesn't matter what that is. As long as that's 0, it'll be 0. So what we use with the quadratic equation is we say, look, if x minus 5 is 0, that will be an answer to the equation. Or if x minus 2 is 0, that will be an answer to the equation. Because if either of these brackets is 0, the whole thing will be 0, and then we've got an answer. So what will my final answers be for this equation? What will be the answers to this equation? So x will be 5 or x will be 2. Fantastic. Now, what you'll notice is if you take x5, you don't have to do this, but you put it back in the original, you will see 5 squared minus 7 times 5 is actually the same as 25 minus 35, which is equal to minus 10. So the answer 5 makes the original statement true. And the same thing is for 2. Okay, and that's all you need to do. So step 1, standard form. Step 2, factorize. Step 3, split. And then step 4 would be solve. So that's the 4-step process that we are going to use for this. And I want you to practice that. But take a screenshot if you want to about my 4-step process, and then we're going to move forward. All right. I think everyone's had a chance to take a screenshot, so let's go and do a multiple choice question. Okay, this is a sneaky one, but it's worth trying now because it'll test your understanding and maybe we can talk through it. So in this case, this one has already done step 1, which was standard form. They've also already done the factorizing part. What you have to do now is split and solve. So I want you to try and choose an answer for A, B, C, and D, and we can have a chat in the chat, but I want to know what are the solutions to this quadratic equation that has already been somewhat dealt with by you. And I want you to split it, and I want you to, and I'll write a bit neater on the side so you can. So standard form is already done. Factorize is already done. You need to split and you need to solve for me. So let's look what the split looks like. With a quadratic equation, when it's been factorized, it's always going to split into the 2 pieces. But now you have to solve, you should say, oh, if I move this across, I get 4x is 1. And if I divide both sides by 4, I get x is a quarter. But I've still got to get my other answer. So here I go 5x is minus 6. And I divide both sides by 5. And I get minus 6 over 5. The answer that has a quarter and minus 6 over 5 is B. Nicely done, everyone. That was quite a hard multiple choice question. So take a screenshot if you want to preserve this or watch the recording. I'm going to move on now and do another one. I want to know what are the solutions to this equation? And I want you to follow the 4 steps that I mentioned earlier on. But I'm going to let you do it and let the votes come through. And while you do that, I'm going to get some more water because my voice is still getting croaky. Yeah, so standard form is actually fine. What method of factorization can we use for this one? Who's going to give us some help? What method of factorizing? I see a common factor of x. So I think we should use the highest common factor and do that. Yes. But now that's the factorize. Now we need to do the split. Sounds like we're doing gymnastics, doesn't it? The splits. All right, but we're going to say x is 0 or x minus 4 is 0. So what option am I going to go for? I see some answers already. There's some A's, some D's. There's some B's. That's good. There's a lot of decision. What do we think the answer is now? What do we think the answer is now? Pop your answer in the chat there. So the x is 0 is already fine, but there should be x is 4. Now, is there one where it says x and 4? Yeah, there we go. So that's only one of the answers, but it's not both. And so the correct option will be D. Give me a thumbs up if you understood why there was still that 0 was an answer. Give me a thumbs down if I lost you there. I just want to get a quick feel for how the class is feeling. That was tricky, but that's why I put it there. Nicole, do you get why this is not a difference of 2 squares? It would be a difference of 2 squares if it was that. But remember, when the x is problematic. So does that help, Nicole and Naledi? Can you see why x squared minus 4x actually has a common factor of x? Whereas if it was x squared minus 4, that would be a difference of 2 squares. Okay, let's do one more before the break, and then we'll come back to these types of questions. Okay, we'll come back to that now. Okay, before we go and have a break, I want you to solve this quadratic equation for me. Tell me what the answer is for that quadratic equation. Fantastic, Nicole. That's Naledi. That makes my heart feel warm and fuzzy. Okay, Mene's got answers coming in. Who else has got some answers for us? So this one was nice because step 1 is done. Step 2, I only have to start with the split. And the split says x is 0 or x plus 3 is 0. Now, that means the answers must be x is 0 or x is minus 3. Yeah. Okay, you guys are smashing this. In fact, you've done so well. We're going to take a break so we can come back strong in the second half. But you guys have done fantastically well. So well done, everyone. I really am seeing good growth. Okay, so what we need to do now, and I know some of you find this a bit funny and silly, but I would tell you to embrace the silliness, because we all have our kids inside anyway. And so I want you to turn on your cameras, and I want you to join me in just taking a moment to unwind and let your brain kind of download what we did in the first half an hour. So I want to see your faces if I can. It's wonderful to see all my students. And I know from experience, the more a group feels connected, the more we can form a maths family, the more everyone will help everyone. Okay, let's start with some breathing. So breathe in, hold, and breathe out. Okay, breathe in. Breathe out. Then one more big breath. Okay, so your body's got oxygen. Let's loosen your body up. So just shake out your arm a bit. Shake out your other arm. You want to feel loose like a rag doll. Just everything flopping around. You can't do this if you're tense. You can only do this if you're relaxed. Shake out your legs. Shake out those legs. Okay. Then get your shoulders nice and loose. You want to roll your shoulders back. And roll your shoulders forward. Okay, and then put your arms out to the side. Small little circles in one direction. And then go the other direction. Okay, and then shake it up one more time. Okay, so we've breathed, we're feeling a bit more relaxed. It's time to get our heart pumping. And I can't, if someone has a suggestion with a better exercise than jumping jacks, I haven't found it, because jumping jacks are the way to go. So we're going to do 15 of these, and we start in 3, 2, 1, let's go. 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 5 more, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and we have done our break. And now the last thing before we head back to things is, can you tell me how to solve the mystery of this puzzle? I don't think we've done this before. Let me know if we've done this before, but I don't think we've done it. Oh, I'm out of breath. Don't worry, Sanako and Kellen, I appreciate you being here, and just catch the first half of the session today on the recording. You will really benefit. We've had a great lesson, and I really want to encourage you to see it, but I understand life is busy, and one of the nice things about MathsLive is just that there's the flexibility of the interaction, but there's also the recordings are always available. So okay. Here my students have said that this is 20. Mfundo has helped us out there, so is Buchle. And then the lion or Simba is, what did we say, 12. Do you guys know that Simba is the word for lion in Swahili? That's where Simba comes from. All right, what is this hen over here, or the chicken, or whatever it's called? I think the chicken, is that a chicken? I don't know. So 12 plus 12, I feel like something went wrong with the lion, or is it just me? If that's 20, I think this lion has to be bigger. I think this lion has to be 32. Give me a thumbs up if you follow. Yeah, Naledi got this. Yeah, I see it. Can everyone see? Because we needed to go 64 minus 20, and that gives us 44. Yeah, well spotted. Thanks, Mfundo. Thanks, Naledi. Now, what is our friend, the chicken, going to be now? I think it has to be 30, and I have many of my students agreeing with me. So the final thing is, what is a kitten plus a lion plus a chicken going to be? Who knows? They're animals. Yeah, so it's just plus, plus, plus. So that's 52, and that would be 82. All right, everyone. I trust you had a good brain break, that you feel like your brain had a chance to save everything from the first part of the session. And so now we're going to return to solving quadratic equations. And all we're going to focus on is that 4-step process. But I'm going to give you one like number 2. So I want everyone to try and solve number 2. And then when you're done, just say 2 done in the chat. If you're feeling lost or a bit stuck, I want you to put your hand up. We can have a chat, or I can answer a question in the chat. But I don't want you to sit there feeling stuck. I'm here to help. And yeah. Cool. Nico is excited. I can see. Nico is ready to do some quadratics there. There we go. So what was step 1? So it has to be in standard form. Agreed, Bukle. And so, Bukle, did you do that? So if I multiply x by 2x, I get 2x squared minus 5x is 12. But it's still not in standard form. But at least it's not in brackets anymore. Okay, so what we needed to do was to multiply out. And then I need to somehow get this 12 to the other side. And I think use inverse operations. And so that would be step 1 done. So that is standard form. We had to multiply out and move things to the left. Now, to factorize, I need a method. I want to know what method, so what method should I use to factorize this? Now, I know some of you will have the quadratic formula, and it's not wrong to use that. It's fine, but I just want to work on factorizing skills today. Trinomial. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So if we're doing trinomials manually, we know there has to be a minus 5. We know there's no choices. The only choices are going to happen now. And we have to break 12 up somehow. What are those numbers going to be? Well, I think it can either be 12 and 1, but that won't work very nicely. So what about 6 and 2? No, 6. What else do we got? But we might have to use the quadratic formula if this doesn't work. If this doesn't work, then we would have to use the quadratic formula. Minus 5. 6 and 2 doesn't work. No. Oh, 3 and 4. What about 3 and 4? I almost forgot about 3 and 4. Oh, I think the eagle has landed. I feel like 3 and 4 is the way to go. So what am I going to put, positive or negative, in front of the minus 4? Oh, I gave it away. Oops. So that has to be minus 8. What has to go in front of the 3? plus or minus? Must be a plus, yep. Because now I know that this and this will give me that. So I've done my factorizing, but I still have to work it out. So let's just say this is 2x plus 3, and that's x minus 4 equals 0. So we've done factorize. I want you to do the split and to solve, and then put the answers in the chat for me. I want to see those answers coming through when you've done the split and you've done the solve. So the split would be 2x plus 3 is 0, or x minus 4 is 0. And you can kind of see that that answer will be there. And that will be there. And then it's going to be minus 3 over 2. So the answer is going to be 4 or minus 3 over 2. Take a moment and see if you agree with me on that one. Okay. So what I want now is I'm going to leave that up on the board. Can we try number 1? We can. We did number 1 before the break, but let us go and do number 4. I want you to try and do number 4 now. And we can do it as a team. The answer for number 1 would be Sinako. It's actually number 1. You just split it and you go x is 0 or x plus 3 is 0. And so for number 1, the answers would be 0 and minus 3. But we did that a bit earlier in the lesson. But we're going to do number 4. Pleasure, Sinako, pleasure. So we just want to ask ourselves, what do I do first? I think I'm going to bring the 32 to one side. What should I do next? And I'll zoom in so it's the big focus here. So I think that there's a couple of things you could do, but I think probably what I would do is I would do that. What method of factorization have I used there? What method of factorization have I used there? Highest common factor, yes. But the 2 is what we call a constant term, right? So that's a 2. If I want, and this might be a little bit like, you might be a bit like, whoa, that's a bit illegal. But can you see, I can actually divide both sides by 2, and 0 divided by 2 is 0, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. So actually, this question becomes, how do I solve that equation? Or another way of saying that is, there's a 2 here. If I bring it to the other side, it becomes divide by 2. So now I need to factorize this. How do I factorize this bit? What method can I use for that? Difference of two squares, yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, open the bracket, x minus plus, and then it's going to be 4, 4, and then 0. Now, what are my answers going to be? What are my final answers going to be for this quadratic? I think my final answers are going to be 4 and minus 4. Yeah, 4 and minus 4. Give me a thumbs up if you followed that. That was a bit harder. Give me a thumbs down if you didn't follow it. Let the people vote. Let the people vote. Okay. Then let's squeeze in a few more. You've done so well today, guys. I can really see your knowledge growing. So I want you to solve for x in this question. Can you solve for x in this quadratic equation? So step 1 is going to be take out the highest common factor. Well, actually, step 1 was standard form, but that's already done. We've done standard form. It's already in standard form. So step 2, and you want to use the HCF. What is the HCF, the highest common factor here? Yeah, it's just x. And so you should have that. Now I want you to solve it from there. Get me my answers. What are the final answers going to be? I think it's going to be 0. So Sinako, you can't do dots here because the 3 is not a perfect square. So you wouldn't be able to do dots here. You have to use the highest common factor and then split and solve it. And the answer I get is 0 and 3/2. Those are the two answers that I get for this quadratic equation. And I think from what I'm looking at in the chat, I'm seeing generally that sort of thing, which is brilliant. Okay, we've done that one already. Ooh, oh, that's actually not so hard. You guys can do that one quickly. Tell me what the answer to this one is. 2x minus 1 times x plus 3 is 0. That's not as hard as it looks. See if you can do that one. They've done most of the hard work for you already. So because it's factorized and in standard form, you can go straight to the split step. And then what are my answers going to be? On this side, it's going to be -3. And then Nomfundo, I agree with you. The answer over here is going to be 1/2. So x is 1/2 and x is -3 is the answer to this quadratic equation. Nice, Nicole, nice. I think, everyone, this will be our last question for the day. And so let us finish with this one. Can you please solve for me this quadratic equation? Solve for A. And I will take questions from the students of the class, but I think I want you to try and do this by yourself. There's actually a couple of ways you can do this. The one multiplying out first, the other one is to recognize something. Some brackets, yes. Sinako, have you recognized that this and this are a common factor?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I recognize that too. I think what we would do is do this. What would you put in the other bracket?
The 2a plus 3.
Perfect. You have been very helpful. Your classmates, thank you. Let's see if someone else can get us to the answer for A. What do we think our answer is going to be for A? So, Sinako, I agree. A is 1. What is the other answer going to be? So if I bring this across, I'm going to get -3 over 2. And so my final answer is going to be A is 1 or A is -3 over 2. All right, so let's recap what we focused on today. We focused on the skills of factorizing. We then focused on how we can solve quadratic equations using a 4-step process, which was put it in standard form, factorize, split, solve. And so that was the main thing.